So this is probably an interesting. This is an interesting topic that I think it will be somewhat interesting to divulge into. But I think like when it comes to the notion of, you know, the repeated cycle of reality and the notion of infinity or forever, I think that it's quite difficult to delve into the unknown, right? But for me, the way that I comprehend it and the way that I comprehend the mechanics of reality relating to, for example, some of the courses that I've undertaken and also including the nature of time. The reason why, yeah, and I know that they don't offer it, like obviously when it comes to the offensive security, different types of courses, etc. There's the one course which is the penultimate course, which like obviously I have my own delusions about that. But then when it comes to that, right, like I've stated before that I would rather do it in the East, right? So like let's imagine, right, if you could get like a reset in life, always of living life based on the particular terms that you define. If you read the fabric of reality, then you'd understand what I mean by this. Um, yeah, in the fabric of reality, you'd understand what I mean by that. You'd understand the basic chronology relating to it. And so how can we dive into this, right? So like, let's imagine you can configure your reality any way that you want, right? And for me, the reason why I would want to have a start or a base in the East, especially around the Japanese region, though they don't offer the course at Black Hat in Japan. They offer it, I think, in Singapore, but like obviously, man would prefer Japan if I could, if they ever change that to like have a course session in Tokyo, or maybe you can get like private training if you really want it like that. The reason why I prefer that over Dubai, yes, because of the nature of sort of Arab countries, right? Like in my viewpoint, I feel like in those environments are very difficult to navigate. Like let's say, yeah, you can guarantee yourself a golden ticket. You're gonna be born into a rich family, or whatever the case may be. You can have that guaranteed. There's still gonna be the major issues surrounding a lot of the problematic things, right? So, like other people, right? So the suffering of other people, and I know that can be patched through, for example, kingships offering various like tax-free stuff and like different types of methods regarding how people live, etc. Based on the king's what the king defines, etc. But then at the same time, I think you're definitely gonna bump into major issues. Like for me, anyway, from my perspective, from the things that I see, there's definitely things that would be an encumbrance to fruitfully achieve whatever it is that one needs to do in that particular reality. So that's my problematic things regarding to that. Um, yes, that's one of the things that I find problematic in relation to that. It'll be definitely very complicated. Plus, also, it's somewhat not very, like you're gonna have all these riches and stuff, right? But what you're actually gonna be lacking, and I think you can always go to the Quran for different things, but really, is that really enough? Well, it is enough, I guess. Like in holy texts, you always find everything and the entirety of what it is that you feel is a necessity in ensuring that you have all the necessary things. You can always find everything basically in these holy texts. Whatever it is that you're looking for is normally in there. You just need to ponder on it long enough to be able to extrapolate it from your thought. But yeah, so for me, like I feel like starting in Japan would be so good because that there is, I'll ask myself where it is. Like I feel like I enjoy the sense of honor they have, um, and I think that the way Japanese people live because of the way that their past is quite drastic as well, especially around the whole like principles and codes that are utilized that are actually underpin religion but not necessarily associated with it. And you'd also understand that when they speak, they're very careful with their words because of the way that death has always been a thing looming over their heads. They're very careful as to their action, and they have righteous intent in one nature or another, you know. And I think I definitely like that about that environment. For the most part, you're always gonna have a housing. It's very difficult not to have housing in Japan, as far at least from my viewpoint. Whether it be made of wood or whether it be made of thingy brick or whatever, that's that. And they have also a very enriched spiritual culture that a lot of it is not actually exposed to us here, but they are embedded in their spirituality within the land that they live in. So they have like spirits and things of that nature. But everything is ideally in equilibrium with nature and in equilibrium with the notion of emotion and also rational thought, which is really cool. So they have a deep sense of law and all those other things there, and that's all good. Regarding riches and stuff like that, yes, that's valued, but it's more so I think the value that those riches are earned through some methodology of like even with gangs and whatnot, right? Like there's always a methodology of specific honorable intent around that, and I think I always I value that a lot more, and I think it'll be definitely an interesting place. Like corruption is difficult, but unfair treatment is probably a common thing, and if people are corrupt, it's far more complicated or more easy to maneuver, and it's you'd always you'd always be questioned. Like I think when people are corrupt in Japan, you always question the corruption. It'll be something that you'd always find yourself questioning as to how corrupt was this particular action. That's one thing I love about it. Because at the same time, I think it definitely comes down to the reason and principles that one hold within themselves in order to actually get to that point of reasoning and adequate understanding. That's my concept regarding it. Well, like in Japan, was Arab countries, were they okay? The principles of they're very closed off. The principles are definitely very different. It's more so focused on like riches and it's somewhat an ego-driven environment. But those, when those, like for me, in Arab, I wouldn't want to be born there. I wouldn't want to be a part of that, but I'd rather it's better for me. Like I feel like in Japan it's definitely a good place to grow up and get those principles, and then after some point maybe Arab society is great when you come into it from the outside and you either marry into it or you discover Islam and you're like, yeah, that sounds so cool, that's so these principles are honorable, and I've met these honorable set of people who have these righteousness attributes, and I fell in love, etc. Or you fall in love and then you enter Islam from that perspective. That's the aspect for me from Arabs, at least from the civilized section of it. I had a chapter from the Quran, Surah 9, but then again at the same time, or Surah, is this? Yes, I think I don't know, fucking man, it's pronounced Sura. But anyway, at the same time, yeah, you're better off coming. You enjoy more when you join it from the outside. It's much more fun that way, and you probably better off doing that through some methodology of marriage and coming into that society through that methodology. That's the best way, and also the challenges that you encounter throughout that process are what makes it a cool thing to do, because you get to actually enter into that society through that, and then you face hardships, but overcoming those hardships is what will ultimately gain you respect. So to get into that environment, you have to have a level of respect. You can't just enter it, and then also being starting in Japan, you get to do you get to ask the question as a black person, where am I from and why am I so different from everybody else? And to me that's a valuable thing, right? And then that's when you because obviously when it happens, yeah, when the bootstrap happens, you leave a set of documents that define where you're from and who you are and all that type of stuff, right? So before you set the configuration, you put a configuration so that you find your home. So for me, it'd be like a thing of going back to where I'm from, in Africa, and finding my people, and then and that's, I feel like that'd be a good configuration to have in your life, at some point in time, to then return and be like, yeah, man, I'm going to find my home people, and then maybe go there and then come back and then do it and then finish, that kind of thing. There is always a really, really nice thing. And also taking those principles that you've learned to your home, and then embedding them with the principles of your people. But I think that that being that differentiation will always would always enable you, being black amongst Japanese people, but then being treated somewhat equally, would always seek you to ask the question of where you're from and why you're so different. And then being given that understanding would open up the world for you to enter into a new adventure, which would be really cool. And in your travels and journeys, you can take different routes, which creates different possibilities and lives and realities. And throughout that, you can maybe encounter the Arab society, the Arab thing, whatever the case may be. That's my viewpoint. Although, like I said, they don't do workshops in Black Hat Japan, but you might have to pay for an extra thing, which would cost you probably like 2 bags extra, maybe even 3k extra, which brings up the total of like 10k for them to do a private workshop. And if you're lucky enough to have friends that would want to be training or learning with you, you can do a group thing, and then they do like a group workshop, and then they come and they set up and they do their thing, and then and you learn. But I think it'd be so good to be able to move yourself about that being involved in all the warfare that's happening, the aspect of it's a deadly environment though, bruv, deadly. I'm talking purges and shit, man. And it's not even just purges and shit. It's just crazy. And then if you want as well, you can embed yourself into a life of crime in one environment, and into the life of justice in one environment, and you can have different configurations basically of this system. So I think that would be definitely very cool. But also not forgetting, I wouldn't want to purge out my identity as a black person, nor my origins as from the country. At this point, there'll be in a sense, there won't be really countries yet, because the scramble for Africa wouldn't have happened yet. So all that type of stuff wouldn't really have popped off. So just to be like the region that I'm from, right? Would be basically about that. And then and it's just, I think that just having that configuration and the people that accompany you throughout this time period would also be awesome. But that's my take anyway. I don't really know much about Arab society. There's a book called World History through Arabian eyes, or Arab eyes, or whatever. You can I plan to get it at some point in time and actually use that as an answer. Let me check the name. Yeah, so it's called The World Through Arab Eyes. Okay, yeah, there's one called The World Through Arab Eyes, which is somewhat modernish, and then there's one called Destiny Disrupted: A History of the World Through Islamic Eyes, which is also an interesting book in my viewpoint. But I think it would definitely help shape one's own understanding of it'll help shape one's own it'll definitely help shape one's own understanding of the notion of that world, and because it's quite a closed off environment, and we don't really have a notion of it. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, really. And that's my general viewpoint, and that's how I would like to do that course, if possible, at least from my understanding, and get into it, because I think that is definitely very good. You can have a definite in-depth insights into things. So here you can see, I think the book is about, and it's a 2010 book as well. It's a couple about 400 pages, and it goes into depth through the notion of Arab society, but not only as a blind sense. It gives you also a spiritual notion to it, which is key, right? Which is fundamentally what we're all seeking in this. Because obviously the whole thing is spiritual, right? And then that's pretty much it, really. That and that's how it would be, man. that's how I plan it, man. So you can pass through the Arab bit there, be like, yeah, man, I'm on route back home. You know, you can get married, spend about a couple years there, and continue on a journey or whatever the case may be. You know, the routes and the methodologies that open up and the paths that you can take are different for each variation of bootstrap that you perform or that you encounter. And to me, I think that's the value of what it is that I seek. But also, I think that in that, regardless of where it starts, yeah, you can start in Japan, whatever, but then always expand it outwards. Because I think the wisdom, the notion of skill set regarding martial arts and all those other things, all that type of stuff will be important, right? Because you also need the wisdom and the knowledge and understanding. And then, regardless of where it goes from there, you know, you can always expand outwards to other nations and other environments, which would also be ultimately very cool in my viewpoints. And so that's the way that I see it. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. When it comes to forces and then the actual assaults and things of that nature, I don't we talk about that. But as you can imagine, being able to do that puts you in a very powerful position as an individual, and obviously there's various protective things that can occur and this, that, and the other, which is also just like things. But it's just like, as you can do great good, you can also do great bad and great evil in this particular scenario relating to this notion and situation of events. And that's the power and the whole thing that comes along with it. And with it, most people aren't really, it's difficult to find an immature person with such power and such regard, because those things are ultimately reserved for for you to achieve that. You would have thought so much that you automatically become a wiser individual than you are initially, you know, which is also key from my viewpoint. And that's pretty much that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, really. I might get into it a bit more about how the technology works, but if you just read, what's his name, man? Um, the Fabric of Reality. If you read that, it'll give you a vast understanding of that technology. Um, it's written by, if I can find the book, man. Hold on, let me find the book. Yeah, here it is. The Fabric of Reality is written by David. This guy. So you can read that last name there. David, this guy here. He wrote The Fabric of Reality. And it's an amazing. It covers everything regarding the technology that you ever need to know if you're curious about it. Not many people are, but you know, yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, that's pretty much that, really. And that's pretty much a notion regarding the other side of things, like how can you configure the machine when you're all that type of stuff. It can get a bit complex. There's this book here that explains the configuration of the other side of the system, or the other side of the end of it, but it's like the end is the beginning, right? It's kind of complicated because the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. That's how fucked up it is. But yeah, there's this one here, the beginning of infinity, which then explains the aspect of of being conscious in the configuration and the world beyond that, or the world that exists therein. Yeah, those are the two things there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my thoughts anyway for now. But I just thought I'd share and sort of expand upon that. I just thought I'd just share and sort of expand upon that. Yeah, pretty much. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, and if anything, just comment. I might make more clearer videos that actually me talking, but like something better that explains things a bit more fluently and more sort of effectively, in my viewpoint. But yeah, pretty much that's that. Hope you enjoyed.